Oh, I'm excited to be here. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of competitors in this space in radiopharmaceuticals, and we're going to see a lot more of that. And it's because there's so much excitement and an unmet need. And when you think about solid tumors and oncology, that is a huge space where precision medicine can really help patients more. And the my father passed away from pancreatic cancer not long too long ago, and seeing him struggle,
Mm.
and I think many of us seeing friends or family struggle through cancer, it's very systemic, and it's they'll suffer largely from that systemic therapy or chemotherapy than the cancer. And with the with the mission and the vision of precision medicine, um, targeted through radiopharmaceuticals, I think you can really do that. And I'm very proud to be part of Telix, being there, heading their global medical affairs. And this is really exciting space. And so we see this, that there's a lot of interest with therapies coming in the space, even radiopharmaceutical companies, that supply chain with uh, the radioisotope supply chain and how to deliver that. And I think where the field is going to be moving is thinking about how do we target the drug more specifically for the patient, but beyond that, how do we deliver the drug, um, through a mechanism of how it's being delivered directly to the patient and helping the practicing physicians deliver that more effectively. And I think the space of radiopharmaceuticals, there's a big space now. There's a lot of we see in kind of regulatory, spaces in the region around even dosimetry. And so for somebody like, um, me versus somebody that is, much, taller or kind of more mass, they would likely have less. How do we deliver that dose where it will target not only the size of the person, but the type of, tumor volume that they need. So there's a higher tumors in their bodies versus, so that's that personalized dosimetry that I think we're probably moving into the field where it's a little bit more not one size fits all dose per patient.
Yeah, excellent. And initially, I can sense the passion, and that's why I was so excited to have you on. I'll just do a quick intro as we go forward. For the folks who don't know, I've had the pleasure of working with Mary for years now, and she's outstanding. She's currently the SVP, Senior Vice President of Global Medical Affairs at Telix, which is a leading radio oncology company, and also some rare disease. Previously with Axia, Ionis, Arbor Pharma, PhD in neuroscience, really an excellent, I think almost on the ground radio leader within the med affairs space. So, like I said, very excited about the impact that I think this podcast is going to make beyond just med affairs leaders and executive leaders, but also within the radio world. So, Mary, if you could kindly walk us through your background and maybe some of the key critical career moves that you've made that have led to success, that would be amazing.
Shaq, this has been really delightful to be partnering up with you and working with you, through our past to present. And it's been really an interesting background I have. I came from a neuroscience, as you mentioned, getting a PhD in neuroscience, focusing on kind of that, rare disease as well as, uh, an unmet need in patients where there's therapies that really haven't, pushed for better therapies, including Alzheimer's or Huntington's disease and Parkinson's. And we've seen that this area has been worked on vastly for, so many years without a breakthrough. So I started with neuroscience and received my PhD there and was really enjoying it. And then further later in my years received my MBA. But I think what that transition really happened was I wanted to have bringing something that was life-changing drugs to patients and wanting to really bridge that gap from bench side, from bench to bedside. And I realized that while I was enjoying what I was doing, the impact wasn't really making that, where that value where I wanted to be, and the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, um, could bring that. And making that decision was wouldn't be an. It's interesting as we ask ourselves, what is our passion? I thought I would realize that a lot earlier. And I think when we reflect back on our careers, where was that turning point? And I was glad that I realized it when it did. Sometimes when we enjoy things daily, and day out when we think about why do we wake up. And so this is where I realized, this is a transition I want to take in my career. And that was when I really started to look into biotechs and pharmaceutical companies. Actually, it really is a nice segue because when I think about, for anyone that's listening, what is it? How do we identify that? And it's not an easy one. I think that when oftentimes we think we know each other very well, our own person, it's actually much harder. And to ask ourselves, to provoke the question of what makes you get up every day? What is your passion? And I find that, I truly believe in the mindset of work. If you find something you care about, it becomes passion. And if work is something you don't care about, then it becomes stress. And that's where I think figuring out that how do you make a plan? What is being a CEO of your own career and how to shape that and having a vision and a plan for that. And I think that's really what I would tell folks is to take a step back and to think, how do you want to get there in the next couple years, the next 5 years, and the next 10 years?
And to build on that, Mary, what two pieces of advice have you heard throughout your career, and what would you share with the listeners, whether they're aspiring leaders or currently sitting in a leadership seat? What two pieces of advice would you share?
I would share that in the leadership position, how do we foster people and growth, and how do we empower them to really bring out the best in them and help them grow in their career. And what I like to think about is focus on the person's strengths. That if leaders would focus on the 80% of people's strengths, you're leveraging them in the right place, and then focus on what do they want to grow in their 10% or 20% for career development. And oftentimes when we see people underperform, it's really that they're not in the right area. And we can help shape that. Sometimes they're focusing on areas that it's reverse, the 20% versus the 80% growth. So we need to put them actually where their strengths are. And that if we focus on that and the culture, it really does embody the culture and the people. I think if companies for 2024, the vision is, having a successful adventure is, if you get the culture and the people right, it will drive everything else. It will drive the sustainability, the competitive advantage, and protectivity of the people. And sometimes what we see in the big, larger pharmas is that they put revenue at the top, but they've got it all. I think if you reverse that and put the people and culture first, that will come.
Amazing. And I imagine, Mary, over the last few years in radio and being in med affairs in a space that I think is still educating the public and the buyers, and I think there's a huge amount of how do we advise people on how effective radio can be. I can only imagine the amount of setbacks and war scars that you've experienced in that period of time. And if you could share some of those war scars, I always say I think it's great because people realize we're going through very similar things, and it allows us to understand that being persistent and sharing those challenges can often improve everybody's ultimate output, which improves patient lives, which is the most critical piece about all of this. So if you could share any setbacks that you might have, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. I think our setbacks and our failures only make us stronger, and we learn a lot from that. And moving forward, there are, we can create new strategies, and we become stronger and better together with the center and the patients at the center. Now, I think I can speak kind of broadly that the setbacks that I see, that I've seen in my past, is that you design a trial and you don't get the regulatory approval that you're anticipating, and you get a complete response letter. I think that if we can, what I often, and I think about this, and I think about what is it, why do we spend so much money and effort on these trials, and often they don't get to the approval that we want. And a successful trial that addresses patient need for commercial success often fails because I think it really truly lacks 4 areas. I think the first, it needs to be designed to produce a necessary level of evidence. And the second is it needs to have clinical utility, meaning that where does it fit? Where does it add value in the practice of medicine with the clinicians of focus? And the third is designed to have an addressable indication. You can design a trial that has clinical indication, or it can be designed in a way that has the robust data, clinical application, but does it have an addressable indication? And that's where that really does have to integrate with the clinical utility. And then fourth, of course, it needs to be designed to have reimbursement, or how does it fit in the payer landscape? And so we think about patient in the center, you can have a great trial, but they will never get access or reimbursed for that if it doesn't really meet all these four criteria. And yes, and then just speaking about radiopharmaceuticals, I think that how do we make trials so that we can really kind of bridge that gap to bring more targeted precision medicine to the patient so that it's not systemic, and then the way that we deliver this. And I think the areas of the most excitement in biotech coming this year, I really do think it's that innovation, the capabilities and scalability with radiopharmaceuticals. And radiopharmaceuticals isn't like your normal drug that you get like a heart medication or anything. But radiopharmaceutical, the supply chain is so complex. But I think we're at a place where we can scale, partner with other industry partners, where we can really be that like Amazon on steroids, to deliver the right dose to the right patient at the right time, and it meets that delivery. How it's delivered to the patient is going to be really key in this space.
And what can we expect in terms of future advancements or trends within the field of radiopharma? And how can leaders prepare for these changes?
That's a great question. I think that's also, I think, regulatory changes too, that how do we prepare? And I think we're going to see new radioisotopes. We're going to see new modes of delivery, different types of targets and molecules. We're going to have to work with governments and regulatory policy around, I think there's going to be a lot of uh, guidance around how much radiation, and we need to work as industry partners together to figure out a way what's best for the patient and access, and not preventing that access. I think that this is a very exciting time, and it's an exciting time where we as industry, we can partner together, and also with societies, for a greater strength um, around the policies that are being shaped around this, because you can see that it's emerging and there's a lot of policies, and the question is, are those policies really permitting or preventing patient access?